What's going on, guys? In this video, we are going to be talking about the Fear and Greed Index and how you should trade it. Today was a wild day in the stock market. The S&P 500 was up 5.4%. The Nasdaq was up over 7%. Bitcoin was up 11%, and it's all thanks to the CPI report. So over this past year, we have just been getting beat down due to the CPI report getting higher and higher, but there was a glimmer of hope. It looks like that CPI is finally peaking, inflation is peaking, and it's starting to come down. We were at 7.7 in October, which actually came in a little bit lower than expected. So, in response, it was risk on all day, and the stock market, as you could see, had this massive jump. And it wasn't just in the SPY. If we look at all companies, I mean, Apple was up 8%, Microsoft 8, Google was up 7%. You have all these big name companies. Amazon was up 12%. We jump over to all US companies. Everything was up. It was just green across the boards. And again, it came in because of inflation. But that's just one day. And what happened was we are now in greed. We were not in greed a couple of days ago. If we go over to timeline here, this is the Fear and Greed Index. If we go back in October, we were in extreme fear. 1 month later, now we're in greed, and we might be headed to extreme greed. Well, actually, if we look at this chart all year, we have not been in extreme greed, but we have reached greed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times this year. And if we jump out year to date, you can see that we've just been in a nasty bear market. We are down about 17% for the SPY. The NASDAQ is even worse. If we look at the NASDAQ, right now we're down almost 30%. And then the Dow Jones isn't down as much, but it is still down. It's down about 8% this year. So we've had this nasty bear market. But within the bear market, let's jump back over to the SPY. In the bear market, we've had some pretty incredible bear market rallies. Right here was a 12% rally. Up here was a mini one that was around 9%. This was the biggest rally at the end of June all the way to August, almost 20% that rally. And then right now, from the bottom to the top today, we're at about 13%, and it might keep going up for a little bit. So how is the Fear and Greed Index going to help you trade this? First off, what even is the Fear and Greed Index, and how do you get to it? Well, if you jump over to Google, and if you type in Fear and Greed Index and hit enter, should be the first one, CNN. If you click on it, it'll bring you to this chart, and it'll show you here's the Fear and Greed Index. We could do overview or timeline. We could scroll down, and it'll show you some other metrics. We got market momentum, stock price strength, stock price breadth, all these different things. Put and call options. This one's an interesting one. Market volatility. But I think the biggest thing is right here, the Fear and Greed Index. So you may be thinking this is the next bull market and the bear market's over with. CPI is coming down, so the stock market should continue to go up. Or at least that's what everyone else is thinking. And if you're thinking the same way everyone else is thinking, you are probably on the wrong side of the trade. If you're not new to the stock market, and if you remember back in August, or even the beginning of August, so here's the beginning of August from here to about here, a lot of people were calling it the next bull market. They were saying that the bear market is over, the Fed was going to pivot, and then sure enough, the Fed did not pivot, and we ended up seeing new lows. Now, if we take this chart, this was August 17th, and if we jump over to the Fear and Greed Index, let's see where we were. So right here, August 17th, we were pretty high into the greed. We were at 67, and then sure enough, we ended up crashing all the way down. We hit all the way down to 15, extreme fear, September 30th, and now it's going back up. Where were we September 30th? So you can see September 30th was right here. So we hit extreme fear, and then we started to go back up. So how do you trade the Fear and Greed Index? There's no perfect system, and it doesn't mean that it's going to work. But Warren Buffett has said it best. Be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. It's so true. Anytime we hit these peaks in greed, you saw that was kind of the peak for these bear market rallies. We were at extreme greed. Well, not extreme, but we were at greed. greed, and greed. And then if you jump back over to this, and if you see extreme fear, this was at a 7 all the way down here. That was back in May. And you could see May was right about here. So this was extreme fear. We did go lower a little bit, but then we ended up bouncing higher. And you can see from here, May, we ended up reaching neutral. We dropped back down to extreme fear, but then we ended up finally getting to greed, and that was the peak back in August. So next time you're looking at a stock or you're looking at the market in general, the S&P 500, and you're thinking, is this a good time to get in? You don't want to be a sheep. You don't want to be a crowd follower and just say, well, I just missed out on a 7% return or 5% return. I should probably jump in now. Take a look at the fear and greed index. Look at where we're at. We're coming pretty high up to the greed index. This is when people are going to start to pile in, which sure, that could push it a little bit higher in the short term. But as you can see, it eventually rolls over. We reach that greed and then it rolls over back into fear. So I want to reiterate, this isn't a perfect system. We even saw the example here. This was fear, and then we ended up going lower, but then we finally went higher. It's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to work out how you want it, but I think this is what really changes you from being a novice into a more experienced trader or investor. If you're an investor and you're dollar cost averaging, you don't care what the market's doing, great. You have an easy job. But if you're a trader and you're thinking, okay, maybe I want to open up some put options or call options, is now a good time or a bad time? When we're in the greed or especially extreme greed, personally speaking, not financial advice, but personally speaking, I wouldn't be buying call options. Maybe extreme greed is when you'd want to start to open some long equity put options. And then vice versa, if we're into extreme fear, that could be a good time to start opening up some call options, long call options. But that's fear and greed index. I think it's a really useful tool. I like to use it to kind of gauge where we are in the market, if now is a good or a bad time. Right now, we're kind of up to greed. Again, I've said I think we may inch a little bit higher, but I do think it's going to roll over again. I don't think we've seen the bottom yet. I think maybe we're coming close to the bottom. We might have one final massive dump, but only time will tell. No one really knows what's going to happen, but this is the Fear and Greed Index. Again, check it out, guys. It's on CNN, probably the only good thing that CNN has ever put out. But if you like this video, guys, make sure to smash that like button. And as always, I will see you in the next one.